Welcome, everyone, to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Julie, welcome.
Hey, Pete, thanks so much. Excited to have a conversation here. It's a slow time of the year.
Yeah. It's about the holidays. By the time this comes out, it'll be the very first of the year. But you ready for the holiday season? Ready for Christmas?
As ready as I'll ever be.
I know, right? It doesn't. Aside from the freezing temperatures, it just doesn't feel like Christmas much anymore. Maybe because my kids have gotten older, but
that's probably it. But you know what? I've heard that like almost 50% of the population right now is in an Arctic blast. So I think everybody is feeling some part of Christmas and the holidays, whether they wanted to or not.
Very wintry, very wintry. Well, stay warm. And so we've got a great episode today, got a couple of market updates, and then we want to jump into what we're calling, the top 5 things we think HR and payroll leaders really should focus on in 2023. So we're excited to share this with you. So you ready, Julie?
Yep. Go right ahead. Why don't you start with news?
So a quiet time of year, of course. But this week I saw that Active Payroll, right? Edinburgh-based, Scotland-based, cloud-based platform provider who does global payroll, somewhat of an aggregator, I would say. Very much a Workday partner. They've been a long-time Workday marketplace partner. They were one of the original, I think, had one of the largest sets of Peachy integrations back in the day. So a longtime Workday partner. They have acquired Malaysia-based managed payroll and employee mobility provider ProPay. I'm mildly familiar with ProPay, but I think it's a great add. The Asia Pac region is a hot region for firms that are growing into, long tail places. There's a lot of activity there with technology demand and certainly people looking to put their footprints there. So I think this is an interesting move. It kind of goes along with what we've seen in the marketplace, right? With PayAsia going off to Deal and some other acquisitions that folks have added there. Certainly Ceridian, we all know the money they've spent on Asia Pac. So makes a lot of sense. And I think a nice move and very typical of what I think we're going to continue to see as we go ahead. Those regional capabilities getting filled by some of these global providers. So
for sure. And as you said, Asia Pac's really been gobbled up. So
it is a lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely.
There. And you've got one, right?
So, yep, I've got one for you too. So I saw an announcement that Buck Consulting will be acquired by Arthur J. Gallagher, which is a large insurance and risk management firm.
Interesting.
If anybody who's been around for a while will, the name Buck Consulting, the brand, will certainly resonate. They started as an actuary firm, and they're mostly in the U.S. and Canada, some in the U.K. as well, and focus a little bit on retirement and actuary, I guess, if I'm oversimplifying. But when I saw this, I kind of chuckled to myself, and I thought, passing the buck. Here we go again. It made me want to blog just to use the title, right? Because even though they were founded, back in the early 1900s, they kind of started on this long line of being passed around in 97 when Mellon Bank acquired them, right? And they kept the Buck name. It was pretty well known. And then in 2005, ACS, picked them up, and then they got shuffled along in that whole, ACS to Xerox to Conduent, right?
Right.
And they kind of, in 2018, Conduent sold them to HIG Capital. And so they've really kept the Buck name, which has some good brand recognition, and been passed around just for years now. It feels like one thing I thought was interesting. I haven't done much analysis on this, but just when they were handed off, when they were last handed off into HIG, I think the value of the firm or what they were sold for was like $1 billion or 780 million pounds. And this particular transaction is down from that, like down 30% in the last 4 years. So they're either like shedding parts of themselves along the way, or there's been a decrease in activity. They seem smaller, I guess, is what I'm saying, than what they've been before.
Leaner.
And leaner maybe.
Yep.
So besides, the fact that it just made me chuckle and I thought about passing the buck, I just thought, well, okay, so I'm going to end this new piece of news just saying Gallagher does the buck stop here.
Yeah. Good deal. Maybe that's an article, Julie. Maybe you'll be giving us an article soon. Good stuff. Yeah, I think this is interesting. I mean, Buck, yeah, you're like you said, a very long time, very well respected brand. So lots going on in this world, right? Risk management, insurance, certainly on the front of minds for everybody,
Absolutely.
especially healthcare. So yeah,
Yep.
exciting stuff. Cool.
There you go.
Well, I expect. Look, even though you're hearing people say, "Oh, there's been a slowdown of some of the investments in the space in terms of the seismic investments that have been happening, right? We're really hard to compare to historically, and so the slowdown certainly has been there in terms of the last quarter, as far as the investment firms not kind of jumping into some of these newer solutions as they were in the past. But I think you're going to see more consolidation as firms get together
Yeah.
and figure out how to shore up their competitive gaps and continue to kind of roll along. So it's going to
Yeah.
be an interesting year as we go into 23.
It will, and
Yeah.
2023 will tell, and I guess you'll always be able to gauge by listening to how long the market news segment is at the beginning of our podcast, right?
Yes, yeah. And I anticipate we're going to see a bunch. And I think in Q1, we're going to see some activity. I really do. Just from what I'm hearing and seeing, I don't think it's going to slow in that way. So,
Right.
yeah, I think we'll see more. So, all right. So let's talk about 2023, right? Top 5 focus areas for HR and payroll leaders, to pay attention to, I'd say, in 2023. 22 was pretty interesting, right? I would call it a pretty. I feel like we were all kind of like taking a deep breath, right? 2020 and 2021 were pretty miserable. We got back together in 2022. Hybrid work really took off. But there's still all of that kind of post recovery going on, right? Post COVID. A lot of challenges still out there. I mean, you're hearing nothing but a lot of economic unknowns, recession, inflation, social challenges, talent shortages. I mean, on and on and on. And certainly with what we're seeing around, the potential of a global recession, I feel like what we're looking at with 2023 is like this cautious optimism, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
we're making progress, things are getting better, but there's a bit of uncertainty around the corner. So certainly firms are going to look to be much more conservative, want to retain their cash, want to retain their talent, and maybe slow down hiring somewhat. But we've got a few things I think where we feel like folks could focus on and really maximize their impact for their organization. So I thought we could jump into those. Do you want me to
Sure.
go first, Julie?
Yeah, why don't you take the first one? What was your
Yeah.
first focal area?
So my first one would say, and I think this is probably maybe pretty obvious, is look, it's expensive to recruit talent, right? New talent to solve turnover, right? When you lose people, it's hard. It's the same expense or maybe more trying to pursue new clients. Not that you shouldn't be out there doing both, but now's the time I think to really re-recruit your existing base, right? Refocus and recommit to your existing talent, right? Look and refocus and recommit to your existing clients.
Hmm.
And I think really, try to focus on keeping those turnover costs low, keeping your eye on the strategy that you've got going on, keeping things stable and managing your client expectations. And I think really, that sort of, with everyone fighting for talent, right? For skills, really, let's be honest. More than ever, you got to really hang on to what you're developing and what you're bringing in, right? And certainly, you want people to grow. You don't want to prevent people from being upward mobile, but you really do want to try and hang on to those folks. And I think now's the time to go and essentially re-recruit them, right?
Yep, yep.
Go back through the honeymoon period, right? There was a honeymoon period that brought you together. How do you recapture that and make sure that you are um, putting the relationship as a priority, right, on the individual level, and employees are feeling valued and needed, and that they aren't. Because there's going to be a lot of uncertainty on the employee part right now, right? Am I going to lose my job? Are we going to shrink? Or there's a lot of that. So I think right now more than ever, really kind of turning your focus inward and looking at your existing employees and customers is really, really critical.
Yep, I think that's a
Yeah.
great point. And you know what? Anecdotally, I've been seeing, more and more often. I think a lot of folks are looking at that, like you say. I'm seeing just a swag that the average cost to replace is 2 times, an
Yes.
employee's salary. So if folks are trying to make a business argument for that, that seems to be the latest anecdotal cost estimate to use.
Yeah, invest in them, right? Skill them, get them where they need to be, right? Get everybody happy and keep moving forward. So yeah,
Right.
good. So what do you got, Julie?
All right, so my first choice for today was listening as the new engagement lever, right? So
Nice.
you and I are both been around long enough to remember when the engagement survey was kind of all the rage and in kind of a, the hot thing. And now I think we're going to see listening, and I think we've already started to see it. And listening as a personal skill, is kind of where things started. It's foundational that you listen as much as you speak, but as a tool and an enablement from a technology perspective, my first thought is, well, so is that creepy? Do you
Yeah.
get the idea of, and I think the idea really started as the idea of engagement surveys, which were annual or periodic. There's a lot of skepticism around whether or not, I think, surveys would say somewhere between 20 and 38% of folks don't really truly believe any action will be taken from those surveys, which were, hot back at the day, to something like listening. And the idea is that it's always on,
Yes.
and that,
Yes.
like you're always listening. So like, what does that mean, right? We start from a tech platform perspective. It occurred to me that, some of that started with brand listening, right? Tools like Brandwatch and others, where they're listening for poor publicity, right, about whatever your company's brand name is, and moving that sort of a thinking, or that sort of information to the employee listening space,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so that I see all flavors of things. We could probably do a whole episode on this, but ranging from, sometimes it's the idea of engagement surveys being more quick and nimble and agile, right? Like, are they pulse surveys? Are they heartbeat surveys? Are they daily smiley faces, right? Like, how do you take the temperature of what people are thinking in the organization about their employer? But it can also range to reading tones or sentiment analysis, where, whatever's being conducted, whatever business is being conducted in platforms, there's software and AI tools that are reading, the sentiment or the reading for tone, to see if folks are generally happy or very happy, or the opposite is true. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. This goes right alongside of re-recruiting your employees, I think, right? That's this
yeah,
is a piece of that, right? Really
yeah,
getting to
it's a
understand what makes them tick.
Yep,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a technique, right? Or a
It
lever that
is.
people are trying to pull, that relates to the focal area that you picked as number one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also I would say I don't want to say a micro step, but it is a contribution towards agility, right? Being able to
Yeah,
catch those cues within your talent, right? To make sure, hey, we need to make some changes here. These folks are under trained, or they're not being cared for, or whatever.
yeah,
That's not going to come sometimes by a typical performance management discussion, or there are little things that you can pick up on. And you're right, technology, right, can help with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I love the
As,
sentiment analysis stuff coming out. I just hope you got to have that good AI privacy kind
yeah,
of
exactly.
responsibility, ethics right behind it. But it is good stuff, and it is helping.
Right.
Sure.
Stay away from monitoring and creepy things,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then, I also think, when it's hot, when some of the bigger platforms start to swallow things up, right? Early, I think 2016 with AltiPro was one of the first ones where they
Yeah. They
they
got
brought
Xander. Yeah.
yeah, and perception came into place, right? And then, now we see it still going on with Workday and Peakon.
Yep. Yep.
And so when the big platforms start, grabbing those things and trying to embed them, you still have a lot of one-off options like Perceptics and, Culture Amp, and there's just so many out there with so many different angles to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Good
think
stuff.
we'll hear a lot more of that. So what do you got for number three here?
Yeah, yeah. So mine is probably, again, maybe it's obvious, but keep progressing, right? Look, cash is going to get reserved, right? We're already seeing it. Companies are kind of getting conservative, pulling back, spend where they don't need it, making sure that they're ready to kind of weather whatever may be coming up. Depends on who you ask. But at the end of the day, I think what you can do is you can still make progress on your goals, your transformation work, right? Continue to invest where you can. Those that invest during downtimes, right? We saw this during COVID. The airlines, I think, were a great example. I can't remember who put some stuff out that. Maybe it was Gartner. Put some things out about how, as an example, the airlines really kind of throttled back on human capital, right? And what happened when summer hit and everybody was able to go travel again and we were open, right? There were luggage lost and no pilots, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
had a lot of problems, right? So don't you might have a restrained budget, you might have some sort of obstacles to what you want to do, but there's plenty of work that you can be doing, right? I'm a big fan of the 1% better every day sort of thing. you're not going to wake up perfect tomorrow or at your goal, but if you keep showing up and you keep taking one more step, even if that's just a baby step, you're going to get to your goal much faster than just sort of waiting, if you will. So again, keep your eye on your goals, right? What are the things that you need to continue to work on from a talent perspective, from a transformation perspective, right? Now's a great time to be training people and investing in skilling. Give more flexibility to, so that you can engage your employees and understand what motivates them and makes them an engaged, productive worker. And yeah, I think really just focus on that sort of incremental progress, right? Just keep doing what you can, look for the low hanging fruit. And then when times, get better and you can go into a deeper investment or go all in on something bigger, then certainly that's the time. But yeah, keep the progress going, keep your foot on the pedal, so to speak, and just don't stop.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I agree.
Yep.
Well, we might have been
Okay.
thinking along the same lines because when I picked my, kind of my second focal area, things that
Yeah.
I thought we were going to hear, it really was around, I think, the prioritization of that and prioritizing around a theme that I
Yeah.
think we're going to hear all throughout 2023, which is, that this coming year is the year of putting people first or being people centric. I just think we're just going to hear that over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And, people being specifically your employees and your talent in the organization. And so, we've both touched on, components of that, right? And putting the pedal on or pedal, light pedal or heavy pedal, listening as a tool. But I think that's, there's so many angles to this, whether it's getting real about the hybrid work and flexibility, you're trying to accommodate hybrid work. And at the same time, you're trying to reestablish human connection and culture as a top priority in keeping people engaged. Those two things seem to be, a little bit opposed in opposition with each other, right? Or whether your particular angle is prioritizing retention over talent acquisition or focusing on talent mobility or the mental health and well-being angle as the way to put your people first. Some of that's going to depend on where your organization is most deficient or most
Yeah.
behind, right?
Yep.
But I think employers and HR organizations will have to make choices, and you'll have to figure out where's the best bang for the buck for you
Yeah.
in trying to create that people first or that people centric organization. So
Yeah.
I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for everybody to be spinning, their things and their initiatives in that through that lens of people first to people centricity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a bit of a you're spot on, dead right, right. But it is a bit of a catch up, right? Like we should have been putting people first a long time ago and making it people centric a long time ago. And it's great that we are now as a industry and a society becoming more and more employee focused and understanding that our workers and our employees are. They're more than just a number or a commodity, right? They're human beings who have ambitions and goals and all that sort of thing. And I think when you can provide them that sort of flexible, caring environment to grow, and you can nurture them, that breeds loyalty and lots of other things with it. So, in all of this, though, Julie, as we talk about all this, I can't help but think that data is going to be super important. You talked about like making good decisions, really having to kind of decide what where, right? If budgets are
Yeah,
limited,
where you
where am I
focus.
going to focus, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that data and insights are going to be very, very important. I mean, we know that it's already the case for agility and for competitiveness and for becoming more strategic as an HR organization. But I think fundamentally this year it's going to be really, really critical for organizations to your point, to have the data at their disposal that they can trust, and actually make a decision that they know is informed and insightful for them. So
Sure. In
yeah,
fact, for some folks, that'll be maybe that's the incremental lever that they focus on is I just don't even have any data or insights to be able to
yeah.
start to make those choices. So I guess I better do something about that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we saw we saw analytics as one of the key things folks were looking to purchase or replace this year, right? It was time, payroll, and
Indeed.
analytics.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. It's critical stuff. I mean, the data that HR holds and payroll holds is so rich, but it's often just not exactly accessible, and it's not altogether understood sometimes. And I think that's where HR's opportunity. I know we sort of say that ad nauseum, but I think that's everyone's opportunity in this space is to take their data and actually, actionableize it, if you will. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
good
think that
stuff.
sets up, and I wanted to suggest, Pete, that it kind of as
Yeah.
our shared and last focal
Okay.
area is
Go
this
ahead. Yeah.
juxtaposition of
Yes.
HR transformation, which is just so much work.
Yep.
And there's so much opportunity, and everybody's in the midst of it, right? There,
Yep.
at some level, everyone is transforming their HR organization in response to the market and what's going on, and juxtaposing that with the idea that employees are either exiting the workforce with some of the demographics going on, or just completely redefining their relationship with work in
Yeah.
2023, even coming into 2023, where they're choosing work more so than work choosing them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how the heck do those two things come together in any balanced way,
Yeah.
where employers can hope to have the right resources to accomplish what they need to accomplish in their business? That's
Yes.
really part of the whole talent conundrum, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I love, and I notice this more and more, and I mean, I think more people that I meet personally, and aside from what I read and what I hear, is I think more people are choosing to pivot work around their personal lives and their
Hmm.
life goals than the
Hmm.
opposite, right? I feel like our generation and other generations before us, it was all about you kind of pivoted around your work and your career,
Yes.
whereas now people, the creator economy is giving people the ability to actually shift the tables and be able to have that actual real work life balance, right? And be able to do the things that they want to do and that motivate them. And yeah, I think it's fantastic
Yeah.
for employees, but it's also creating a lot of angst and trouble and competition that employers probably never thought they were dealing with, right? Because I mean, how often in the past did you see people kind of break out and become their own, whatever? It wasn't that easy. And now with the internet, with mobile, with digital, with all that's available, social media, there's so many platforms you can be found on and get your products out on. And I feel like so many things are being built for that creator economy that
Yeah.
it's almost like infinite. So you really aren't just competing anymore with other employers. You're competing with lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
You're in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think
That's
what's
hard.
interesting, you kind of said that employees now are choosing, right? Are
Yeah.
choosing their careers and pivoting around
Have
their work life.
options.
But what remains to be seen is, can you effectively do that, or is that now just an expectation that they
Yeah.
have? So I have a couple of I have several
Yeah.
20 somethings, right, in my
Okay.
home
Yep.
brood here,
Same.
and so
Same.
they're just entering the workforce, and one of my son and his girlfriend are have practically they
Yeah.
basically accepted first jobs on different sides of the state of Michigan. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
3.5 hours, maybe sometimes four, depending on from where to where you're going.
Yeah.
Both of which are, I think have some expectation of hybrid work ability, right? So when you have your 20 somethings or new folks and folks that do have this expectation, you start to watch from even from a Gen Z, type of a situation.
Yeah.
There are advantages to being able to be in the office, and there are advantages to hybrid work, and so it's not as black and white, I think, as the workforce is expecting. Hybrid work is hybrid work, but it kind of means you have the struggles on both ends, right?
Yeah.
When am I in the office? When am I not in the office? Do we both move to one side of the state, or where do we locate? And what is the impact to one person's career over another person's career, just because of how difficult or how easy you make it to be physically at the office or at the workplace or in the factory or wherever at certain periods of time. And
Yeah.
so there's so much to that I think we'll be playing with that as a society for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where you're going to have to see, that's where HR is really getting pulled to become more fluid and agile for
Mm,
how they handle the employee. Like it's not a one size fits all anymore, right? And you're right.
right.
It's not even sector to sector, it's business to business. It's unique nuances and use cases and needs. And, the great thing is there's a ton of technology coming out to help with all of this stuff, right? It's just, while there's a ton of technology coming to help with this stuff, the problem is there's a ton of technology to help with this stuff. You know what I mean? You've got to weed through all of that, and
Yeah.
you've got to figure out. And that's another thing, right? You've got employees like using so many different tools, right? It's like got to be confusing for them. And I hope that we'll get some clarity around that as well, that these tools will start to kind of come into better focus. Maybe we'll see some consolidation in those areas. But you're right. This is a challenge that I think that HR is going to be dealing with for a little while until they figure out how to break that old way of kind of, stodgy old way of operating and become more fluid and flowy, if you will,
Yeah,
in how
yeah.
they engage people.
Yeah, and certainly,
Yeah.
that the right answer isn't necessarily, well, just let everybody work from home, because we're seeing challenges in creating
Yeah.
engagement, challenges in maintaining culture. I mean,
It's not for
and
everybody.
there's challenges on your own, balancing your own personal
Yes.
life, which is what you're trying to do. So just
Yeah.
fun. It's a fun time to be in HR.
Yeah. And it's really interesting as I talk to people, I do a bit of volunteer work with an organization called Hire Heroes USA. And I talk to typically younger veterans, younger than me, coming out of the military, and, they're making their transition. Sometimes spouses, I work with spouses as well.
Mhm.
And I actually do hear people saying, like, I would really like a job where I can go into the office at least a few days a week. But then you've got other people. I've got, kids, like you said, 20 somethings that are like, I don't ever want to go in the office. I'm happy to do what I do. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all personal. It's
Yeah,
all dependent upon what the business needs are. That's obviously a priority.
that's the priority,
So
right?
yeah. You're right though. It's not a one size fits all. And but I do think that these organizations that are drawing these hard lines in the sand and saying no this and no that, I think that's a little bit short sighted, and I think that's going to bite you.
Yeah.
I would not do that.
Well,
Would
here's
not
something
recommend that.
I'll give, like a little bit of a prediction too. I think just trying to find that balance is going to
Yeah.
lead us to see a lot more partner relationships, third
Yeah.
party independent, so if it's not that easy to do and make that balance of talent internally to your own organization, then your first reaction, if you want to be nimble and you want to actually get done what needs to be done, is you have to go to a third party in some capacity, right, to
Sometimes.
supplement what while you figure out what you're doing. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to happen a lot
Yeah,
more.
yeah. Very good. Well, this is exciting. It's going to be a exciting year. I'm very optimistic. I think we've all got an opportunity to kind of shed the drudge of 2020, 2021, and maybe we were a little bit, it's funny when, we all got out there and traveled in 22 so much more, I feel like, than we did in, the prior years for obvious reasons. But I don't know about you, but I felt like my travel muscle wasn't entirely in
Oh, for
shape,
sure.
right? I was so off on certain things. So we'll be all getting our travel muscles hopefully re-engaged and have a great 2023, and hopefully we'll get through some of these economic things and get on to better times
That's
quickly,
right.
I hope. So
That's
so
right.
look, thank you so much for making 2022 a success for us. We've had a blast doing this. I know I have.
So have I.
And thank you,
Yeah.
Julie, for doing this with me. I do want to tease, right?
Uh-huh.
This episode will come out the first couple of days of January. So look for that. Well, obviously you won't be looking for that because it'll just be there. But look for another episode coming in January, a very special episode. I won't give away the details, but we are going to do a very, very special episode. Actually, I will tell you it will be somewhat of a live episode coming up. So just stay tuned for that and look for that. And we'll be back soon.
That'll be a first. I'm going to be excited to be in the same room for one of these, Pete.
I
So,
know.
so that's all we'll say, and
We've
we'll leave folks wanting more.
a lot of firsts. Well, thank
Thanks,
you so much,
everyone.
Julie. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Take care.